recording this. Again, if you prefer not to be recorded, just let us know, and you can if just let us know, okay? So welcome to Jazz Up Your Flip Charts. I am super excited about sharing this with you. Just to go a little bit deeper into my background. So again, my name is Brian. It's nice to meet you and work with you all. I've been a meeting facilitator for about 20 years, and I actually had a brief stint working for an architecture firm where I did design charrettes, and I learned all kinds of things from them, like the proper pens to use and how to do like an architect's line and fun things like that. Also got pretty good at using SketchUp back in the day. I don't know if you guys still use that or not. I also picked up my lead AP. I forgot about that until recently while I was doing that. So I used to do a lot around sustainability. These days, I'm a meeting facilitator, which means I go in and I help groups work better together. And Chris is, what did you say? You're my girl Friday, I think. You said that
Yeah.
today. Yeah, that was awesome. I loved that. Yeah, so what I wanted to do is to show you just a few things that you can do to jazz up your flip charts. Okay, now here's what I'd like to do before we do anything else is I would like to do some introductions using a team portrait. Okay, now whether we're in the room or in person, I still like to do team portraits. And that is, looks like this. So what I would do is I would go in, let me square this up a little bit. I tend to draw on from the left side of the chart. Okay. And I'll move the microphone so hopefully you can still hear me while it's not in the way. So what I like to do when I go into a room is I'll do a quick sketch of the table that people happen to be seated around. Okay. And then I'll put a prompt up at the top that looks something like this. Might say like, okay, give me your name, your role. Okay. Something that you would like to get out of our time together. And then one interesting thing about yourself that nobody in the room already knows. Okay. And I'd like to do that here. Okay. So I'll kick us off. My name is Brian, and I will be your facilitator slash trainer today. And the thing that I'd like you to walk away with, your outcome, is that I'd like you to be able to get just one or two things you can use. So one or two useful things. And then something interesting about me is, oh, I don't know. I once built a canoe. Okay. All right. I'm just going to go down the list as I see people. So can we go Bailey next?
Yeah, I'm Bailey. Um, I am a planner and facilitator here at the Schreifer Group. Something that I'm looking forward to getting out of this is making better drawings. I am not artistically inclined.
Mhm.
And an interesting thing about me is I like to make cake.
I like to make cake. You didn't say bake cake. You said make cake.
Oh, well, I guess they both work.
Is that right? Well, I mean, like, I don't know if you get like pre-baked cakes and you just decorate them, or do you start with like the dough or the batter?
No, yeah, from scratch.
From
Yeah.
scratch. Okay. I hadn't heard make cake before. All right, cool. Let's keep going. How about Jeff?
Yeah, my name's Jeff Appel. I'm a senior planner and project manager. Really just curious to see what your approach is about and how it might apply to our work.
Okay.
Um, and I I don't know of anything that anybody in the room doesn't know about me. So maybe somebody else can come up with that for me.
Okay, I will come back. Well, if okay, here's the thing. If somebody else comes up for it, it is something that somebody else knows. So we will come
Well,
back
true,
to you,
yeah,
Jeff. All right. Do you want to take a minute and think about it?
sure.
All right, cool. Let's keep going. How about Jennifer?
Good morning. I'm Jennifer Howland. I'm a senior planner and project manager for the Schreifer Group.
Mhm.
I'm hoping to find some better uses for this super expensive large Post-it paper
All right.
because it's a lot to carry around, so it needs to be worth it. And something interesting about me is I like to buy local artwork.
Ooh, local artwork. Thank you. Let's see. I don't think we've heard from Jill yet. Jill, you want to go?
Sure. My name is Jill Schreifer. I'm the founder and CEO of the Schreifer Group, and this is my incredible team. And something that people in the room don't know about me. Let's see. I guess I'll just share something coming up that's exciting. I'm going to see Little Shop of Horrors for the first time ever, this week, next weekend.
Amazing. And what would you like to get out of this workshop?
I would like to get out of the workshop how to maybe pre-plan some of the flip charts that we're going to do during a charrette and have them be a little fancier, a little more thoughtful.
And make them fancy. I love it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, let's go with, let's see, I guess I haven't heard from Kelsey yet. Kelsey, do you mind?
Hi, Kelsey. I am a planner and project manager with the Schreifer Group, and something I want to get out of this is kind of in line with what everybody else said. I'm not artistic at all, but I would like to use the giant poster stuff because I love like actually writing stuff, but I would like to be able to make visually appealing and, you know, quickly draw out things in the moment that are visually appealing and make it worthwhile to have it presented in front of everybody and a useful tool for everybody to be using within the workshop.
Got it.
And something interesting about myself. I'm kind of on par with Jeff where I'm like, I don't really know what to say. I'm not that interested in a person.
Well, back to the both of you. That's all right. Okay, you can think about it. Let's see. Who haven't heard from yet? Leah? Am I saying your name right?
Yeah, Leah.
Okay.
I'm Leah. I'm a planner with the Schreifer Group. Something that I was thinking about with the flip charts is I think that they can be a really interesting way to engage people. So learning how to use them in a way that engages stakeholders. And then something about me, I didn't know what to say, but Jill was talking about Little Shop of Horrors, and I love musicals. I've gotten so into like seeing musicals, listening to them, all of it lately. So there you go.
I'm noticing that there's some musical talent, unless Jeff has his guitars up there just for show. Okay.
Definitely a theme.
Let's see. How about Mary? I don't think I've heard from Mary yet.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm a planner at the Schreifer Group, and something that I want to get out of this, I mean, really similar to Bailey, I want to get more confident with my hand drawings. I think that they are just really awful right now. And so I think the confidence of actually getting up in front of a group of people and maybe having the confidence to write on a flip chart is definitely, and knowing where to start of how to practice is definitely something I'm looking for. And something about myself, so difficult. I feel like everyone knows everything about me because I overshare. I just got a new Spanish tutor, so I will be learning Spanish. So if anybody wants to practice with me, anyone on my team, please let me know.
Amazing.
That's
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah.
And how about Chris? Chris, maybe you didn't know this was coming or not.
So good. I kind of had the feeling it might be. So my name's Chris. I'm the project coordinator / Girl Friday of Lizard Brain. What I would like to get out of this is just watching Brian work. So this is the first opportunity that I've actually had to watch Brian work. One thing you might not know about me is I just planted a tree in my front yard right before this meeting.
I knew that, but we'll go with it. All right.
I know, right? You knew it, but not everybody else did.
Oh, fair. Okay. So, Jeff, coming back to you, one interesting thing about yourself that nobody in the room already knows.
All right. Well, so I can't guarantee that nobody knows this, but I took Japanese in high school.
Very cool. Japanese in high school. And how about Kelsey? One interesting thing that nobody in the room already knows.
All right. I just signed up for cooking classes.
What kind of cooking?
It's kind of all over the place. It's based on just different things that you're making each time. So the first one is going to be scallops and risotto.
Ooh, that sounds super good. Okay. All right, let's zoom out on this activity for a second. So the team portrait is something that I do as a facilitator, no matter what's happening. So I'd like to hear from you. Why might you want to do something like a team portrait? What's the value of it? I mean, we go into these meetings, we do these charrettes, time is tight. We're already cramming 10 pounds of stuff into a 2-pound bag. Why do a team portrait? And I'd love to hear from you. If you want to go ahead and go off mute, I'll see it and then I'll call on you. So Jennifer, what's going on?
I think just to get a feel for who's in the room so you can draw some connections and just have a more meaningful discussion.
So getting to know who's in the room. Yeah, Kelsey.
I think it also creates kind of a more casual environment for people to be comfortable with each other, to kind of open up the lines of communication throughout the whole workshop.
Yep, you set the tone right at the very beginning. You're also modeling participation early on. So we do this first before almost anything else, because if your goal is to get it to be engaging and participatory, you need to get people to engage and participate from the beginning. If you blast them with PowerPoint, they're going to go back into what we might think of as passive receive mode, or as I like to call it, movie mode, where you're sitting there watching a movie. Why else might you want to do a team portrait? What do you get out of it? Yeah, Chris.
It's an icebreaker.
It's an icebreaker, right? So this one thing about yourself, it's getting people to do a little bit of revelation at a human level, and so we get to see each other. That does have the effect of building trust. By the way, let's go back to just the questions that I've got here. Clearly, I've got your name, your role. That's important. I'm really after your outcome. The one interesting thing, I'm not bothering to write that down, but that does give me just a beat of time in order to be able to capture the outcome. Okay. Now, speaking of outcomes, let's see how good of listeners you are. We'll go back a step. So who can tell me what they heard from others with regards to outcomes? What did you hear? What did you want to get out of this? Jennifer.
Get better at making things look pretty.
Better at pretty. Okay. What else?
Preparation prior
Preparation prior. Okay.
to, being able to know what we can prep prior to the charrette, I believe is what Joe was saying.
Okay. What other outcomes did you hear?
Their use of like using the flip charts.
Better use of flip charts. Okay.
More about your process.
My process. Okay. And we're gonna see if we can cram 20 years of learning into 1 hour. All right.
Easy.
Yeah. What else did you hear with regards to the outcomes?
Making the process more engaging and useful for the stakeholders.
Okay, so making it more
Did
engaging.
somebody say that?
Yeah.
I think somebody said that.
Yeah, but I don't know if I captured it exactly the same way. So engaging and useful. Okay. What else did you hear?
Confidence to draw in front of a group.
Okay. Confidence to draw. I did hear that one big. Draw. Okay, great. Now, what I just did, anything else? Was there anything else you heard? Jill, you're off mute. Was that a dangling on mute? That's fine. So this is a list. Ooh, I know, big reveal, right? But the thing is that a list is one of the most basic things that you're going to do, because a list comes from brainstorming. It comes from just, getting out from people whatever they're trying, whatever's in their head. Okay. Now with flip charting, the most important thing to keep in mind is that we want to avoid it looking like we just tore a page out of a novel. If you think about just a sheet of written text, it's all black, it's very flat, doesn't have a whole lot of dimensions to it. What we want to do is we want to break it up and make it a little bit more visually interesting. So here's a few conventions to keep in mind. Okay. So the first one is to use, go for titles. We want to go big. And in general, we want to go black. Big black titles. And the reason for that is that is the thing that really grabs attention. Okay. We can talk about markers and different tools for it, but if you've got a large marker, like one of these guys, you're going to want to save that for your titles. Okay. The other thing that's a good idea, especially if you're doing a list, in order to keep it from looking like just a solid wall of text, is to alternate colors. Okay. So alternating colors. I have chosen, just because this is jazzing up your flip charts, I decided to go with a little bit of a New Orleans theme. And I'm going with like some greens and purples on this. So text colors, actually, let's do a new chart. So we'll do color usage, and then we'll come back to this and we'll break it down a little bit. So from the top, when we think about colors, so black in general would be big titles. And that's really about it. Okay. When we think about some of our other colors like purple, green, if you've got it, let's do the others just to get them up here. Blue, and then some browns. I know I qualified it, but I'll tell you what I mean in just a second when I get there. Some browns. What do we think we use those for? Go ahead and call it out. Any thoughts? Jill?
Main subjects.
To some extent, yeah, I might just say, yeah. Uh-huh.
They don't look like they pop out next to each other.
Yeah, so here's the reason for that. These are midtones. So midtone, actually, they're not even midtones. They're more on the dark side of things. So if we think about it, here's just a quick grayscale. All right. So here's absolute black is over here. One of you guys as a designer can probably tell me the hex code of that stuff, right? What is it, like 0, 0? Thing? And then as we move more towards, as we move more towards the left, we go into like our darker gray, right? And then our lighter gray until eventually we get to white, okay? So these text colors tend to be more on the darker side. And the reason that we want to use these for text colors is how come? Why might these be better markers for text colors than say like a yellow or a red? Any idea? Yeah,
Contrast.
Contrast, exactly. We want this to show up well against the white paper of the chart. Okay. And we've got the last one. Now, if I was gonna use these in a list format, it would look something like this, where I write something, okay, and then I flip it, and I go to something else, and I would go back and forth in that order. And generally, I don't go like brown, green, purple, blue, all in the same list. I try to keep it to 2 colors, just to alternate like that. So this is a personal thing, but I like to go green and purple, and then blue and brown. Okay. Now you can mix this up. You could do green and blue. You could do brown and purple. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. However, one of the things to keep in mind is that most markers, when you get them, are in these shades. And when I say shade, I'm talking about the amount of black that it has. And it just so happens that the green and blue, if you've got anybody in the audience that is colorblind, these two together can be rather hard to see. That's why I keep those two apart. Okay. So in general, as I'm alternating, these are the, these are the two ones, these are the two kind of schemas that I use. You put these together, this is kind of a danger for color blindness. Okay. Let's do some more colors. What about red? You saw me do it on the chart, the previous chart to this. Why might you want to use red? Or how do you use it? Kelsey.
Indicating like new lines or points of new thought processes because you're using it for the bullet points.
Exactly. Bullet points. Bullet points. Now, just as a reminder to myself, if I'm making bullet points, so there's all different kinds of bullet points. We'll do a few. But the thing that I like to do is if I'm doing a circle as a bullet point, it's like this. I like remind myself the metaphor that I use is like I want to make sure that there's like a big piece of pepperoni on the page. Okay. What I'm not doing is a little kind of wimpy dot like that. That's not what I'm after. I really want this thing to show up big. Okay. All right, let's take a look at my list from before. And as you take a little small there, you know, I kind of cheated it a little bit, but let's go back to the outcomes. Not too bad. Okay. So a quick kind of a library of bullet points, as long as we're here. What are some other icons I can use for bullet points? Just go ahead and call them out. Yeah, Jill.
Squares,
Squares. Okay.
stars,
Stars. What else?
Arrows.
Arrows. I love arrows. Okay, so really quick, block arrow, an easy block arrow. You draw an equal sign. Okay. You draw a line. And then kind of a less than sign, and then just fill it in. Okay. Perfect block arrow if you do it like that. What else could you do?
Hearts and smiley faces.
Love hearts and smiley faces. Okay. I got a heart. Has anybody ever read the Ed Emberley books before? Does that ring a bell? No? Oh man, you're missing out. Okay, here's the way that so there's a bunch of ways you can do smiley faces. To keep it kind of in the same family of smiley faces, this is just how I like to do it. First of all, not like this. Although that's fine, you could kind of get away with that maybe. Is it still showing up on the screen? Yeah, okay. You could kind of get away with that maybe. But I think it's far better to do something like this. So I'm going to fill in a circle, just like I'm doing one of my big old pepperonis, okay? And then I'm going to go back over it with my black like that. Okay, both work. Both are perfectly okay. This is just a slight preference for me. Okay. All right, so we've got some bullets now, and that's good use of red. Let's do a few other colors. How about orange and yellow? Why might you want to use the orange and yellow? Any thoughts?
Underline.
Yep, exactly. To call out some you know, to separate. Also to highlight, right? So we'll say to highlight. And also as dividers. Okay. So for example, you know, let's say that I've got some text going on here. I'm capturing a list, capturing some, like, here's a sentence that somebody says. And then somebody says, yeah, you know what? And that's a really important idea. I can go back under it and I can highlight it like that. Okay. I barely, if ever, pass out yellow and oranges and reds to my participants, because what are they going to do? They're going to grab it and they're going to start writing with it. And so, you know, when my participants get a kit from me, mostly it's in the text colors up here. Okay. There's one other color that I think if you really want something that's just going to take your charts to the next level, your flip charts to the next level, it's a good idea for you to invest in a really good gray. Okay. And I'll show you why in a minute, but grays are really good for a couple of reasons. Grays you can use for, again, dividers. So dividers between lines of text, base drawings. So thinking like the team portrait, which we then put text on top of it, and the text was in black so that it comes to the front. You know, just a little light touch on art theory. If we have something lighter, it fades to the back. If we have something darker, it comes to the foreground. That's atmospheric perspective. People spent a lot of time thinking about this during the Renaissance. How we apply it is that if we want something that's important to come forward, we write it in black or in a text color. So going back to the team portrait, for example, notice how the drawing of the table is done in gray. And then you put text on top of this. If I was doing this as a design charrette, and you'll probably see me do this when we do some work together, I'll probably sketch something out in light gray, like very light gray. You'll still be able to see it. And then darker gray as we refine it. And then black on top of that as we really lock it down. Okay. So gray works for dividers. It works for base drawings. And let me tilt this down just a little bit. The other thing that it works for really, really well are shadows. when we actually get into some of the better drawings that are out there. Okay. All right, that was a lot. And by the way, I'm gonna scan all of these charts and get them to you. Okay. So you know, take notes for yourself. I'm a learn the way that I learn is by taking notes. And at the same time, if you'd rather just kind of be in the be in the receive mode, I will scan these and send them out to you. What questions do you have for me before we move on? Going once, twice. All right, let's talk about black just for a second. I would highly recommend that you get yourself permanent ink for these guys, okay? For your black. And the reason for it is that let's go back to the use of yellow for a second. Let's say that if we found something that was really, really important, if we were to use like your typical markers, flip chart markers, Mr. Sketch, that kind of thing, if you try to highlight this, it's going to smear all over the place. However, if you have permanent ink, now this is still drawing, so I'm not going to use it quite yet. If you give it about 5-10 minutes, you can then grab your marker, your yellow marker, and then go over it, and it doesn't smear all over the place. Okay. Okay, we can go in a few directions from here, actually. We can talk about like markers and marker anatomy. We can do a little bit of lettering. We could do some drawing. Where is your energy right now? What would you say? Jill, and then Jennifer.
Drawing for me.
You wanna do
Drawing for me.
You wanna do some
Sorry.
drawing? Okay. Let's do some drawing then. So I like to draw in black. It's just a preference of mine. You can draw in pretty much any color you want. Well, not any color. Draw in a color that people can see, more towards like the dark end of the grayscale. And we're gonna make this super simple. By the way, if you have your participants, if you want them to draw, here's the way that I would say it. We are not going to ask you to draw. We are going to ask you to make marks on paper. And you can model that just like this. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to make some marks. You're going to make some marks. I'm going to make some marks. You're going to make some marks. So you're going to follow me. Okay, here we go. So we're going to start as simple as possible. These are warm-ups. Here we go. Make a dot. That's it. I just want a little dot. That guy. Yay! First mark on paper. Now, of course, when we connect two dots, we get a line. Go ahead and give me a nice line. Okay. And then you can see where this is going. What happens when you connect three dots? What's the shape? You didn't know we'd be doing geometry. Oh, you're all on mute. There we go. Kelsey.
Triangle.
Triangle. All right. So let's do a nice equilateral triangle where the sides are equal. That's what that means. Okay. And, you know, just for fun, spin it around 90 degrees and have it pointing to the right. Again, these are warm-ups. This is just like doing our warm-ups before we work out. And then spin it the other way and have it point to the left. Okay. Now let's do a right triangle. And the way that I like to do a right triangle is I'm going to draw an L. Let me pause on that for a second. It is far easier for you to draw from right to left and top to bottom. When you're making strokes on the page, making sure that they're going in this flow, either left to right or top to bottom. So that's why we do an L from top to bottom and then left to right, and then closing the line like that. Okay, so give me an equilateral triangle like that. As long as we're doing that, let's go the other way. So again, following this idea that it's easier to draw from left to right and top to bottom, I'm going to go top down. I'm going to go left to right. Now I have to go against this. So I'll go in the way that makes the most sense for me, and that would be top to bottom. As long as we're doing this, let's draw another one. Top to bottom, left to right, and then close. And then the last one, left to right, top to bottom, and then close. Now, take a look at where my body is positioned, okay? I'm right in front of this chart. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take your two index fingers, put them like right in front of your nose, just like that. Like like that, like you can see your eyeballs on either side. Okay, perfect. Then what I want you to do is to draw a circle that stops right about your belly button. Okay, so this is a circle right here. This is our workspace. Okay, this is our workspace. What you want to do is you want to make sure that your hand stays within your workspace, because what happens is if you go outside your workspace, what starts to happen, especially if you're writing text? Who can tell me? If you go way out here, yeah, Bailey's got it. Bailey, use your words.
Yeah, you get slanted.
Yeah, that's right. So what ends up happening is that the natural ball joint of your shoulder starts to take over, and it starts to either dip, or you're aware of it and you overcompensate and it starts to drift up. So again, what you're going to want to do is stay within your workspace when you're drawing. Okay. So quick sketch of this, and yeah, why not? I haven't done this in a while. You're like right in here. And so if you find yourself writing on like a whiteboard, flip chart is not such a big idea because big deal because they're this wide, right? But you want to be really squared up to it. Now, if you're writing on a whiteboard and you notice your hand kind of drifting over here, move your body, stay within your workspace. Okay. All right, so that's pretty good for triangles. Okay, your pop quiz. What happens when you connect 4 dots together? What do you get? And there's like 3 right answers.
Square.
You get a square. Jill, what else do you get? Jennifer.
Rectangle.
Rectangle. Anything else?
Parallelogram.
Nice. There's the geometry. You have to go back and apologize to the teacher who you said, when am I ever going to use this? You just used it. All right. So if we're going to do a square, L, okay, you're going to draw an L, and then 7. Let me do that again. So it's an L. I'm not going to connect them this time, just so you can see it. So it's an L and then a 7 when you're drawing rectangles or squares. That's the L7. L7. Let's turn them into some rectangles. So we're just going to stretch it out. Again, L7. We'll do like a nice horizontal format for a rectangle. And then let's do a tall one. So L7, same idea. And we've got our rectangles. Now, when we are drawing things that are not flat like this, if we're drawing things that are a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more angled, that have some dynamism into them, things like banners or parallelograms or trapezoids or things that are drawn on the isometric or with perspective, it's easier to draw the 2 parallel lines first and then draw the following 2 parallel lines. So for example, if I'm going to draw a trapezoid or parallelogram, take your pick, I'm going to draw the first 2 lines like that. See how they're a little bit offset? And then I'm going to draw the other 2 sides like that. And that's because your body remembers. Your body knows. So rather than doing the L7 method where I would disrupt that snap of the 2 strokes that mirror each other, I'm going to draw them in such a way that it repeats. Now, let's take this up to the next level. Same principle. Let's draw a banner. So I'm going to do kind of just a gradual swoosh. Okay. An S curve, very, very gradual. Let me get this actually a little closer to the screen because I'm drawing kind of small. So very, very, very gradual. You could barely see the curve in that. But as soon as I do it, I want to draw one just like it right underneath it. Okay. People over exaggerate this S all the time. I'm going to draw 2 parallel lines that mirror each other just like that. And now I've got a banner. Okay. I could stop right there if I wanted to. I'm not going to stop right there. We're going to make this even better. I'm going to mentally imagine that I'm going to do a copy paste of this shape. And I'm going to copy and paste the same shape up and to the left and behind this shape. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to copy and paste the same shape pretty much just like that. Okay. I'm going to finish the bottom. I'm going to shorten it. Okay. So it's not going to take up the whole length of the thing. And then I'm going to connect corner to corner like that. Now I've got a folded banner. Let me do that a little bit more exaggerated on the other side. So I'm going to imagine again that this is a copy and paste, and I'm going to paste behind this thing. So same line right there. That's the same line. I'm going to notice this line as it comes to the left, and I'll copy that same line. I'm noticing the bottom of this same line. And then I'm just going to go straight up and then connect the inside corners like that. Now I've got kind of a wavy flag, and I can keep going. I can do, one after another like that. And now this thing gets longer and longer. And if I wanted to be very, very, very fancy, I could do another one, make it longer, and then bring in our less than symbol over here. So now it's like a flag. Okay. Now I've got some containers, and the rule is that when you're using containers, is that you write the text first and then you draw the container around it. So for example, if I've got the word container, I'm going to write the word first, and then let's do this same banner. Very, very gradual S curve above, same thing below. I want to mirror that. I'm going to connect the two lines. And then I'm going to do that copy and paste, that mental copying and pasting. And again, the reason that I'm writing the text first is because it's the text that dictates the size of the container. If I draw the container first, maybe I'm spilling out all over the place. So same idea. Contain. Oh, I blew it. That's a fail. Okay. So you write the text first and then you draw the container around it. Those are our nice geometric shapes. Let's do a few more. Okay. Circle. So here's the thing. Just go ahead and draw a circle and then we'll analyze it. Circle, circle. It's kind of interesting. People either have a clockwise or a counterclockwise circle. You just got to find whichever one yours is. Okay. Now, even for circles this small, I have to describe this. My wrist is locked. I'm not using my wrist. My elbow is locked. I'm not using my elbow. I'm really using my shoulder. Back to that natural ball joint of the shoulder. So this is really more about your shoulder than anything else, especially if you're drawing vertically like I am. If you're drawing horizontally on a table, it's not quite the same. But if you're up on a flip chart or at a whiteboard, it's really more about your shoulder than anything else. So you can get pretty good at circles if you learn to use your shoulder for it. Okay. So give me a few circles. I have plenty of shoulders. Give me a few circles. Now, here's some really, really fun shapes. Go ahead and draw, related to the circle, go ahead and draw a spiral. Okay, just like that, like a Cinnabon from the top. And give me a few of those. Now, here's the weird thing. Everybody has a different spiral. Either you draw from the inside out or the outside in, and either yours are clockwise or counterclockwise, and it's unique to everybody. It has nothing to do with handedness. I've studied this. Why have I studied this? Because I've taught dozens of people how to do this. It's not like a scientific peer-reviewed study. It's just I've noticed that there's really no rhyme or reason to whether or not people have clockwise, counterclockwise, inside or outside spirals. The point is find yours, and that will be your spiral. Okay. Now here's something really fun we can do. So what we're going to imagine if you were to grab the inside of this spiral and pull it straight down. Okay. So imagining that we're grabbing the inside of that spiral and pulling it straight down, it might look something like this. Okay. Very quick, very smooth, dynamic, fast. We're not trying to be too precise about this. Just one of those. All right. This is a good time to talk about shapes in meaning. Okay. Which is to say the meaning that certain shapes have. Why might you want to do something like this? Why might you want to draw this shape? What does it mean to you when that pops up? Yeah, Jennifer.
I would say it's like taking it from one thing and drawing attention to something below it.
Yeah, so you could use it to draw attention. What else? What's the meaning that's associated with that shape?
It makes me think of anger and like you're fuming.
Yeah, so you could, maybe you could do like a little person underneath it, right? We got an angry person, and that's the smoke coming off the head. Or it's a tornado, or it's a whirlpool, right? Or it means change. So these shapes have meaning. And depending on exactly what you're doing, understanding that some of these will have meaning that's attached to them. So for example, if we put something in a box, that's like a fact. That's a known thing. That's concrete. That's real. Now, one of my favorite shapes, which we haven't done yet, is a cloud. Go ahead and give me a cloud. I'm not going to show you how to do this one, but go ahead and give me a cloud, and then we'll take a look at it. Now, what most of you probably drew or are drawing is something that looks like this, right? And absolutely nothing wrong with that cloud. It's perfectly okay. If you put a circle in the middle of it, you've kind of got like a marigold or a poppy or something, right? So it's like one of those things. Now here's the way that I like to draw clouds. And again, this is personal preference. I like to imagine them almost like big thunderheads. So I'm going to do a flat line at the bottom. Okay. And then I'm going to go little, big, little, big, little, big, like that. So I got a nice big old thunderhead there. Okay. So back to what I was saying before, if we take a piece of text and we put it inside a box, it's like it's a fact. It's a known thing. It's very concrete. We put it inside a cloud. Well, maybe this is just an idea. Maybe this is something that's a little bit more abstract. Maybe this is something that it's a little nebulous. It's a little ambiguous. Maybe it's a challenge or an uncertainty that's there. So shapes have meaning attached to them. Okay. By the way, this is also a really, really good moment to demonstrate what the gray can do. So again, if you invest in a gray, you can take your gray and do a quick inside shadow on some of these shapes. And it takes your drawings from good to really good. Okay. Just by adding a little bit of gray to them like that. Even this guy, if I just do a little bit of an inside shadow, pretty cool, huh?
It's amazing.
Yeah, and this is, I will say, if I see a facilitator and they're using gray, I'm like, that guy's a professional. Yeah, they know what they're doing. It really.
What brand of markers do you use? What is that gray?
So all of my markers, let's do a little bit of a pitch here, okay? So let's talk about markers. Because markers do really make it work. Chris, you're gonna have to cut what I'm about to say out of the recording. All right.
Okay.
Anytime somebody grabs an expo marker and draws on a flip chart, God kills a kitten. Okay. Don't do that. All right. That's not what they're meant for. It's a sin against humanity and nature. Do not put expo markers on paper. It's just, if I could change the world, that would be it. If I was king for a day, that would be the thing. Because a lot of people don't know how to use markers properly. I highly recommend you get your own set of markers and you bring them with you. You can't count on the venue to have them. All right. So let's talk a little bit about markers. The markers that I use are by Neuland. Okay. So if you go to Neuland, I believe it's .us. Okay. You can get markers from them. Now, just a word, they are refillable. And so the markers that I use, these are the same ones that I've used since I started. So you can switch out the nibs. You can fill them up with ink. If I have my kit of ink with me, I can draw for weeks. And so if I'm on the road a lot, I don't have to worry about my markers ever going dry or my nibs ever going soft. Okay. I would recommend that you get a monoline. I'm sorry, that's what it results in. The monoline is the result of a round nib. Okay. So I really, really like round nibs for text. That's what I'm using right now. And the reason for it is that monolines are consistent. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about the angle that you're holding it at. You will always get a consistent line. And so all of my text markers are monolines, and it's just so I can pick it up and use it and not even have to think about it. Okay. That's the first thing. And if we were to do a zoom in to this thing, it would look like that. It's a round nib. Okay. Now, if you want to branch out a little bit and try a few things that are a little bit more fancy, let's see, bear with me for just a second while I check something. Yeah, here we go. And Chris, thank you for dropping the link to Noiland in the chat. I appreciate that. If you want to do things that are a little bit more fancy, let's talk about chisel tips because they're all over the place. Okay. So we'll do just a quick touch on chisel tips and then I'll open it up for questions. So if you think about, let's see, that still is showing up pretty well. So a chisel tip, most people will pick up a chisel tip and not even think about the angle that they're holding it at. But let me tell you, that angle is everything. Because based on the angle that you're holding it, you will get different lines and different consistencies of lines. So in general, the tip is good for very small text, like what I'm doing right now, and drawing. Okay. The wide edge, this one, can be used for, let's see if I've got a good example here. It can be used for like bold text. Let me show you what I mean. So if I flip it around and I make sure that the entirety of this front part, this whole thing is in contact with the paper, and I hold it sideways, I get bold text. Okay. And if, as I'm listening to my participants, if I'm being a good scribe, as it were, somebody says something like, oh, I don't know. We need this space to be, what's one of the words that you hear all the time when you're doing like site planning and charrettes? We need it to be what?
Adaptable.
Adaptable. Okay, so we need it to be, and I'm doing all that with the tip of the chisel. That's all the tip right here. But then when we get to adaptable, I'm going to flip it around and I'm going to say adaptable to really call out that particular idea. Okay. And then if we stay on that, I might add a little bit of, I might promote it a little bit. If adaptable keeps showing up again and again, I might, grab my orange so that there's some nice contrast there, complementary colors, and really have that come forward that way. Okay. So just a couple of things on markers. Again, monoline for text. Chisel is really good for drawing and also doing bold. All right. And with that, we have just about 8 minutes left. We've done a little bit of drawing practice. I'll tell you what, let's do some icons. All right. We did some practice of what are called seed shapes. So those shapes that I gave you before, those are seed shapes. Let's put them together now. And how about we do some requests? Okay. So this is where you call into the DJ, you request your favorite song. What kinds of icons are you asked to, or not asked to, what icons would you like to add to your chart? So thinking about the kind of work that you do, let's build a visual vocabulary. Okay. What are the kinds of things, the icons that you would like to represent on your charts? And go.
Positive and negative.
Positive and negative. Okay, well, we'll do this. This is the easy one. So I would, in that case, I would grab my chisel tip and I might just do positive. Now I'm using the broad edge and negative. Now, if there are things that I'm actually scoring on the chart, so for example, if I've got like a bunch of things that are on this chart, there's a bunch of different ideas that are there. This is all text. We've done some brainstorming. Okay. And I want people to tell me whether these ideas are positive or negative, this is where I'm going to switch my colors up. So again, red would be the one that I'd probably go for if I was using it to like either promote ideas or rank those ideas in some way. So I might do it like this. This is a good idea, not a good idea, not a good idea. And why am I using red? Because I want it to stand out and to come forward against the text that's behind it. Okay. So what about some objects? What are some objects that you might need to represent?
People,
Roads,
roads, airplanes,
People, roads, and airplanes. Okay.
buildings.
Building.
building.
We'll start with buildings because they're the easiest out of everything you just said. Okay. Now I like to, when I'm drawing buildings, I like to start with the horizon. So I'm going to do a nice throw line. That was just, it was real quick. You may have missed it if you were looking down. Let me do it again. It's just a whoosh like that. It's got a little bit of character to the line. It's got a hard start and then a soft end. So it just sort of fades away like that. Okay. Much more interesting and dynamic than if I'm doing like, if I'm just holding it. All right. I'm going to do the L7, but I'm going to start with a drop line. So I'm going to go straight down. I'm going to go across and then I'm going to go down again. Okay. And then I'm just going to do a series of L's for the windows. L, 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 just like that. Leaving a little space at the bottom for a door. And if I was feeling very fancy, I might put a doorknob on it and I'd call it a day. Okay. If I was feeling very, very fancy and I had time to do it, I would do, I'd add a little bit of perspective by doing just a drop line back here. So an angled line down and then another line behind it. And this is absolutely a case where you're going to want to pull out your gray and shade that back wall of the building. Let's do a few more. So I could angle the roof if I want to. That would be kind of cool. And if I match that same line with the bottoms of those L-shaped windows, now I've got a building that's in perspective. I know that was quick, but we don't have a whole lot of time left. And again, I would fill it in. Now, if I was adding a little bit of landscaping, absolutely nothing wrong with lollipop trees. Okay. So you're going to draw your circle, straight line down, and then an inside drop shadow with a gray. An inside shadow with a gray. Excuse me. If it was a drop shadow, it'd be behind it, but an inside shadow. This is also a good opportunity to pull that cloud in, because if I do a little cloud here, like that, and then I do another line down, now I've got a tree. You want to see it again? Here's a cloud, one of those big thunderheads, a line down, and now I've got a tree. And again, an inside shadow, just to make it that much cooler. Now this is, for lack of a better word, an elevation. This is if I'm looking at this from the front, right? As long as I'm doing that, let's add a road, okay? Now, here's the way that I see people do roads all the time. And this is, I think that this is okay, but it could be better. They generally look at this and they're like, okay, road, like that. It's all right. You know, it's got a little bit of perspective on it. It's okay. I like to do more of like an S curve like that. I know that's not really an S curve, but it's, you know, quick and tight at the top and then widening as it gets to the bottom. Now, if you look at this thing, this is very horizontal. In other words, this is really a lot wider. So these the angles of them are wider than they are vertical. Okay. Not like this. That's pretty vertical. Not like this. There's no perspective there. If I draw it this way, where I'm really widening it out, it's much more realistic. Okay. So we've got roads, and then the last one was people. We could do a whole class on people. I will give you just a light touch on people. All right. So starting with like kind of an oval for a head, a rectangle for a body. You can do absolutely anything with this. So if I wanted to have somebody that was pointing, I'm going to draw an arm just as a simple line coming off of the corner. Maybe I'll put the other hand on the hip like that. 2 lines down for the legs, and then thinking about the hands and feet like oven mitts, like compressed ovals. And if I really wanted to have this guy pointing, I do a little U underneath the hand for like the meat of the pointer finger, right? Like this part right there for the fist. I could have a couple of people shaking hands. So again, oval for one guy, oval for another guy. A couple of rectangles. And then I'm going to put the hands first. So I'll do one circle and then another circle slightly peeking out from behind it. And then I'm going to connect the hands to, again, the top of where the shoulders would be, which is to say the corners of those rectangles. And this time, since they're facing each other, I'm going to draw the legs and have the feet pointing at each other and also not overlapping. We don't have time to get into it right now, but we want to generally avoid overlap unless it's a case like this. Okay. All right. So we have just a little bit of time left for a couple of questions. Any quick hits before we close?
When you're looking at the full piece of paper, is there any guidance you can give on how to chunk out the different sections?
Yeah, so just a light touch on layout. Okay. Let me move this up a little bit. By the way, I can go a little bit later, but if you guys need to head out, I completely understand. If we're thinking about layout in general, on a flip chart, there's the list, okay, which we talked about already. There's also the idea of what's called a staggered list, where I write some text, I write some text, I write some text like that. And then I reserve this white space to draw a picture, draw a picture, draw a picture, draw an icon that represents those ideas. Okay. Another thing you can do is to do a mind map. Anybody ever done mind mapping before? Seeing some nods. Okay. So a mind map is a radial network diagram that starts in the center with a big idea or an image and then branches outward following the ideas or the sub ideas, if you like, as they occur. And so the cool thing about a mind map is it's self-organizing. Okay. You could also do a word cloud where we're just going to capture some ideas wherever they fit. Okay. So in general, though, with something like this, mostly it's a list with a flip chart. Okay. I think we got time for just about one other question. Jill, what do you got?
I was just going to ask for advice you have on writing titles to flip charts.
So when it comes to titles, I would go big. Okay. Big titles. All right. I generally like to use black for that because that's going to be the heaviest thing that's going to grab the most attention. And there's the idea of organizing your content in the things that you see at a glance. So the first thing that you see, and that should be the title. And then at a scan level, which is the headers, and then at a read level. So in other words, glance, scan, read. And if you think about in terms of the order of importance of this thing, here's another one of our flip charts. If that's an iceberg, the things that is most important should rise at the top. That's what we see at a glance. And then next level down is what we see at a scan. And then finally read, which is the small text. Jill, was there something more specific about titles that I could help out with?
No, I think I was thinking about like how to do like different letters with like shading inside or things like that, just as practice.
Let's do another brown bag. Another brown bag.
We've hit the time, I know. Thank you.
Sure. Kelsey, what do you got?
Oh, I'm just looking at that. So is your recommendation then for the titles all uppercase letters, headers, uppercase, and then like break it down to lowercase letters?
Absolutely. So that's a
Okay.
really good point. So talking about case, right? So in general, uppercase for the titles. We could call it title case for the headers. So capitalizing the first letter of each word if you're doing headers at the scan level, and then sentence case for the read level. Sentence case is the most legible. Okay, so you're going to really want to index on sentence case for that. Good question. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay. What else? Any other questions? Other things to look for, by the way, this is a quick example of a visual template. So Jill, getting back to your point about how do we prep things in advance, maybe thinking about, well, what's a visual metaphor that we could use to have this conversation? Maybe it's an iceberg, or maybe it's a factory, or maybe it's a coral reef, right? But thinking about like a big systems metaphor that you could use in order to capture the ideas that are coming up. Maybe it's a canyon, right? Or maybe it's a bridge over the canyon. One of my favorite visual templates is what's called a heaven and hell chart, right? Maybe that's your positives and negatives, going back to that one, where you draw like, all right, let's draw some fire down here and some clouds up here. What's best case scenario and worst case scenario? So you can use visual templates to help guide your discussion. And that's something that can be prepared in advance as well. Okay. Anything else that's still burning for you? Speaking of heaven and hell, anything else? All right, cool. Well, we've got the recording. I will scan these charts. I'll get it back to you. Let me go ahead and drop my email into chat. And if you all have any questions or want to geek out even harder, please reach out to me. This is the best work in the world, and I would love to help out however I can. Thanks for attending.
Thanks so much, Brian. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Bye.
Thanks, Brian.